Sin Planet by Mack Reynolds. Originally published in the March 1958 issue of Amazing Science Fiction magazine and republished in the December 1966 issue of Great Science Fiction magazine. Read by Darrell T. Smith II for my channel Quasar Spectra. Sin Planet. When the spaceport reefer units had cooled ship and tarmac, the latter snaked out. The sole passenger destined for this stop worked his way down, a single bag in his hand. He strode with moderate haste to the nearest shield and stood looking back at the craft that had been home for some weeks. Auto longshores on their whirling treads scampered about, and in a matter of moments the ship had deposited cargo, took on cargo, and then began again its fulminations against gravity, finally shaking the tentacles of inertia from its should-have-been immovable bulk. It disappeared into the nothingness above, and Jeff Archer made with a shrug, which was at the same time a stretching of muscles, and picked up his bag. The Syrian clipper had been roomy enough, her air being somewhat superior to nature's own, but there was still a feeling of constriction gone. There was no welcoming committee. In fact, there was no one at all other than the technician in the control tower who gave him a wave as Jeff passed on his way to the administration building. He had not expected a steamboat round the bend reception, but there were usually a few sightseers about when a clipper landed. The glass portals of the administration building opened before him, closed behind him. On the far side of the expanse of tile was a mildly gaudy TE sign, blinking its letters in rainbow neon. Archer made his way in that direction. Inside, the door having closed quietly after him, he put down the bag and looked over the counter. "Hey," he said, without either volume or impatience. He had a whole week to kill. The other wore the standard Terran Express uniform down to the faint whiff of wanderlust perfume. But right now his eyes were closed and his stockinged feet tucked into a drawer of the desk. He growled softly, opened his left eye, closed it, and began to mutter something. He shot open both eyes. His chin dropped, and he caught himself before his chair took him over backward. "Holy smokes! A tourist!" He scrambled erect, his face shining welcome. He sat down again, his face still shining welcome, and began slipping into his shoes whilst demanding, "Where in the hell did you come?" He caught that and said, "I'm sorry, sir, but I received no advance notice of your arrival." Jeff leaned on the counter. "I didn't know until yesterday I'd stop. Got a spacegram from the Home Office. Had some time to kill anyway. Might as well do it here." "You don't kill time on Ennui," the other muttered, finishing with his shoes. "It dies a slow death of age here." He held out a hand to be shaken. "I'm Freddie Braun, Ennui agent of Terra Express." "Jefferson Archer. Just Jeff," Jeff said. "I suppose you can make reservations for me. All the standard TE services, including an auto hotel, right here in the building. I doubt if I'll be staying in this town. I'm not exactly a tourist. We might as well get this straight. I'm looking for the local Sin City." The tourist agent blinked 3 times. "Sin City. Sin City," Jeff said. "I'm from Interplanetary Mag Riders, classified hack 4th class Division X. That's men's magazines. My subclassification is Sin Cities." Freddie asked cautiously, "What's a Sin City?" Jeff Archer sometimes got impatient at this point. His father and grandfather had both ranked 3rd class, sports. He'd never made that grade. He said, "You know, wine, women, and song, wide-open town, narcotics, political corruption, vice of all sorts. Every planet has at least one Sin City. Jerks back on Earth with soft jobs in department stores and such sit around in the evenings and read my articles and drool." The other was shaking his head. He'd started shaking it almost from the beginning of the description. By its end, he was shaking it regretfully. "Not on Ennui," he said. "There is no Sin City on Ennui." Archer said, "That's what you think. If there isn't one, I stretch a point here and there and make one. Come on, let's go get a cup of coffee and talk about it. You don't look pushed with business." The tourist agent ducked under the counter to join him, muttering, nostalgia in his voice, "Coffee! I remember." He led the way out a back door of the spaceport building after showing Archer a place to stow his bag. He calmed the other's hesitation with, "There hasn't been even a petty crime on Ennui for 5 years. Not to speak of anything as exciting as pilferage." The street was on the drab side. Across it a small bar and grill, not different from every bar and grill across from every spaceport, airport, train, or bus station down through the ages. The place was empty, except for the bartender who wore the white apron uniform of the IT monopoly, including a faintest touch of Prost perfume. "Hi, Freddie," he said, eyeing Archer with unfeigned interest. "Shucks, if I'd known anybody was going to be on the Clipper, I'd been there to meet it." Freddie made introductions before choosing a table. "Jeff Archer, meet Jack Casey. Couple of concentrates," he ordered. "Hot or cold, Mr. Archer?" Jeff said. "Concentrate? You mean that sour lemonade stuff? Coffee for me." "Yeah," Freddie said. He and the bartender sighed, the sweetness of nostalgia again in the air. "Jeff, this is a declassification planet, and 1 ounce of dehydrated coffee will make 15 cups, while 1 ounce of concentrate makes 1,000. Archer screwed up his face. There were a dozen questions to ask already, but some of them could wait. He said, while the bartender was drawing the water, "What's the spaceport doing way out here? Usually it's on the edge of the capital city." "Ennui is the capital city," Freddie told him. "Oh, well, where's the population center? Where are the big resorts?" Casey was bringing their drinks. He said sadly, "This is the population center." Suddenly his eyes went to the clock. "Jumping jets, Freddie. This stranger coming along made me forget. It's almost 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock? The tourist agent said blankly. "It's the first Friday in June." The bartender was scrambling back to his post, hurrying small glasses onto the bar. "Holy smokes!" Freddie gasped. "Come on, Jeff." He scampered to his feet. Men began pouring into the tiny bar. 15 or 20 of them, Jeff Archer estimated. They lined up impatiently, each behind one of the glasses. Freddie Braun made hurried introductions. "Boys, this is Jeff Archer, hack writer going to do some articles about Ennui." Some of them hurried some kind of a hello, but most of them muttered, their hand held within an inch or so of their respective half-sized shot glasses. "What'll it be this time, gents?" Casey said, his voice tense. "Wojie!" they chorused, evidently having decided upon that answer beforehand. Jeff Archer wasn't sure he wanted any of the fiery Martian absinthe this early in the day, but he held his peace. All this probably came under the head of local color, and he might be able to use it. Local color a writer needed, even for Sin City pieces. The clock chimed and the bartender began pouring as fast as he could go down the line. As quickly as a glass was filled, it was downed, without chaser, and the glass replaced until Casey came by again. He had it down, Archer had to admit, to a fine, fast art. Jeff had never seen a man pour so rapidly and accurately in his life. Not a drop spilled, not a motion wasted. He tore up and down past the 18 or 20 glasses, filling them almost as rapidly as they were polished off. Jeff Archer murmured, "What the hell?" under his breath and drank along with the rest. He'd never seen such bolting of liquid dynamite in his life, but he could find out just what was happening later. The clock chimed again. Casey stopped his pouring. Everybody relaxed. One of the newcomers said happily, "By golly, I got 4 this time. That's the best I ever did." Another said, a hint of the wojie blurring his voice, "Casey is getting faster." Casey said modestly, "I've been practicing with a bottle of water. You boys can depend on interplanetary taverns giving you the best service possible." Now that the tension was over, the men crowded around the planet's most recent edition, all of them with a few words to say before making their apologies and heading back for their jobs. When they had gone, Jeff Archer and the tourist agent took their table again. Archer cleared his throat and said, "What just happened?" Freddie was pleased with himself, having got 3 wojies of his own and a 4th that Archer had donated to him. Jeff Archer didn't like to drink fast. Not that fast. Freddie said, "I told you Ennui was declassification. In fact, it's declassification." Jeff muttered, "I didn't know you could get below C. Subdivision 4. Practically no freighters stop off here, and even when they do, merchants aren't interested in shipments involving such small orders." "But what happened just then?" Archer insisted. "Don't you get it? There's no prohibition on ennui, but we have such shortages that our liquor regulations have to be, well, stringent." "Stringent?" Casey took over the explanation as he washed the glasses. "On the first Friday of each month, starting at 10 o'clock for 2 full minutes, you're allowed to buy alcoholic drinks on ennui. There are some other qualifications, too. It's for sale only over this bar, and no glass can hold more than 1/3 of an ounce." Jeff Archer was taken aback. "We can't buy a drink for the rest of the month? You can't be serious." That was right. "Well, then why weren't there more men here? I'd think the whole population of the planet would—" "It was," Freddie said, "except for 2 or 3 who don't drink." Archer relaxed in his chair. Slumped would be the better word. "Let me get this. You mean there are less than 30 men on this planet?" "23, including you," Freddie said. "But look," he had 100 questions. Finally settled for, "What are you doing here?" He looked at Casey. "And you?" That was easy. Freddie said, "If Terran Express wants to keep its interplanetary monopoly franchise, it's got to have an office and representative on every populated planet." He nodded at Casey. "And the same applies to interplanetary taverns. They've got to have a properly staffed bar on every planet, or they'd lose their franchise." Indignation was beginning to well in the writer. "But the guidebook said that this planet was the richest gem center in the galaxy, just in rubies alone." Freddie said gently, "It's been a long time since mining was done with pick and shovel, Jeff. Here we've got automation raised to its zenith. People are just not necessary." Archer felt desperate. He turned to Casey. "But look, this law about liquor only 2 minutes a month, who's to stop you serving it? Well, say 3 minutes." There was a reserved dignity in the bartender's answer. "See here, Archer, we got laws on ennui." The writer was holding his hands out, palms upward. "Sure, but, well, who enforces them? It seems to me that you fellows could—" A metallic voice cut in with a warning, a voice that seemingly came from the walls. "Subversive discussion is a misdemeanor. Article 4, Section B, Ennui Criminal Code. This is a first warning. Repetition involves prosecution. Casey said, "We got automation like it's never been no place else." Jeff Archer suddenly felt the need for fresh air. "Come on," he said to Freddie Braun. "Let's get out of here." Followed by the tourist guide, he made for the street. "See you gents later," Casey said in the tone of his calling. They strolled up the street, the tourist agent pointing out the town's sights with a professional line of chatter. "And here to our left," he was saying happily, "we have the Sapphire plant. Once a month, a human mechanic checks the non-human mechanics. Otherwise, it is fully automatic." He broke off to look shyly at the other and to say, "You know, this is the first time I've ever had the opportunity to give a bona fide tourist the conducted tour of Ennui." "I'm not a tourist," Archer growled, and then with all but anguish in his voice, "Look here, Braun, you're young and you look fairly smart. Why don't you leave?" Freddie Braun looked at him, taken aback. "I work for TE," he said. "I've got 7 years in with them. If I quit, they would be wasted. My career—" "Then Casey," Archer insisted, "and all those other men in the same boat. They've had the hard luck of being assigned to Ennui for a few years. If they flunk out, they lose seniority or possibly even their jobs." He hesitated before an auto dispenser put a coin in it. A cigarette rolled out. Archer said, "You buy your cigarettes one at a time?" "Freddie, lots of trouble, isn't it?" Freddie chuckled bitterly, brought a small pair of scissors from his pocket, cut the cigarette into 4 pieces, then carefully stashed 3 of them away in a miniature cigarette case. The 4th piece he inserted in a clever holder which obviously allowed the smoker to consume butt and all. "My weekly allotment," he said, lighting up. "Lady Nicotine is on the scarce side too, but—" In the middle of his sentence he stopped short. A worshipful expression spread over his face, and he grabbed the neat TE cap from his head. Archer stopped too, aghast. Walking toward them from down the street was a gangling female, colorless of face, tight of mouth. Her clothes— But Jeff Archer decided to ignore her clothes. Either they were impossible to obtain on Ennui, or she had the worst taste he had ever heard about. As she passed, without a nod, Freddie said huskily, "Hi, Goldie." For a long moment he looked after her until she disappeared into the doorway of the street's most elaborate bungalow. Archer said, "Holy cow! What was that?" "That was Goldie." "So I gathered. Who's Goldie?" "Ennui's women folks." Archer turned again and looked down the street in the direction in which she had disappeared. "Are you kidding?" The tourist guide in Braun reasserted itself. "Goldie was a stowaway, the first and only woman ever to set foot on Ennui. I suppose she owns half the planet." "Half the planet!" The other sighed deeply. "Among other things, Goldie charges 20 credits a word to talk to a man." "Did you say 20 credits a word?" "That's right," Freddie sighed. "Another 2 weeks and I'll have enough to—" "That old bag?" Braun drew himself up stiffly. "See here, sir. You might be a TE customer, but you're speaking about the woman I love." "Love?" "Me and everybody else on Ennui," Braun said. "She's the only woman on the planet, remember?" "But, well, how did she get half the property on—" "Oh, that. For a while, Goldie worked in Casey's bar. Made enough on tips in the first week to start her investments. Pays high on Ennui, you know, for obvious reasons, and nothing to spend it on." He sighed again. "Mostly, we spend it on Goldie." They'd reached the end of the street. Now they started back. At the Spaceport Administration Building, Braun helped the other with his bag, conducted him to the presidential suite of the Auto Hotel. The writer had been quiet for a long time. Now he turned to his companion. "You characters must be crazy, letting yourselves be marooned on this nuthouse planet. Believe me, when that clipper sets down next week, I'm going to be out on the tarmac waiting for it." "Next week?" Braun said blankly. "You mean next year? Now I know you're around the bend. My firm sent me here for 1 week, and that'll be plenty." Freddie attempted consolation. "Sorry, Jeff. Somebody goofed it for you. The spaceship comes just once a year. That's one reason for all the shortages." The writer was suddenly weak. "A year?" "That's right. But look," the tourist agent told him soothingly, "it's not as bad as all that. Not for you. Look at me. I'm a tourist agent with no tourists. Casey is a bartender without liquor to sell. At least you're a writer. This planet is a natural. It's practically one big gem. What a story! And some of the animal life is amazing." "I'm a Division X," Archer snapped. "Not a damned Division K, zoologist." Freddie shrugged it away, looked at his watch. "Well, I suppose you'll want to unpack. I'll see you later at the mess hall. We all eat at the community house." He grimaced. "Class D, hydroponics and concentrates." After he'd left, Jeff Archer scowled. Animal life. Gems. What's the guy trying to do? Get me to louse up my union standing, writing out of my classification? He opened his suitcase, dug around for a moment, finally coming up with an electronotyper. He growled under his breath, "Might as well get the first story off. If I'm going to be here a year, I'll have to take the place from every angle, if I'm ever going to make my article-a-month quota." He sat himself down in a pneumato chair and began dictating into the typewriter. "Title," he said. "Ennui, Sin Planet Supreme. Space. By. Space. Jefferson Archer. Space. Paragraph. Sin-racked city in its cesspool section of space is tiny Ennui, happily largely unknown to the average reader of this magazine. Happily, we say, since the degree of iniquity here is all but unbelievable. Paragraph. For instance, fiery woji is openly sold in Casey's bar right on the principal street of the principal city, and so depraved are the employees of the gigantic gem plants that they leave their posts en masse even at 10 o'clock in the morning in order to indulge in glass after glass of the potent beverage. Paragraph. A certain narcotic, which I shall leave unnamed, is available in slot machines on city streets of Ennui, nor were we surprised, strolling along at midday, to spot a painted woman. You've been listening to pre-1990s speculative fiction readings with a highlight on science fiction by Darrell T. Smith II. Please consider clicking the donation link in the description box. Thank you so much for your time and your imagination.